Yo, yo, yo.
Hello.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 87 of Heelanhammer. On today's show, we chat about the best army in Warhammer. I don't think it needs any other thing. This is it. The internet has been waiting for this show for many, many years. And it's here, the best army.
Dan has sprung this on me last minute and said, right, put them in the order of 16. Best number one, last number 16. I'm like, what, now? Yeah. You got 2 minutes, do it.
You got 2 minutes, go. It was off the cuff. It should work well. So before we get into that then, word to our sponsors, www.oggames.co.uk. For all your hobby needs, it's obviously the place to go. The June code for all you listeners that like to get a little bit of extra discount you're looking for is obviously OG. You spend £13 or more on anything, type that code in and you'll get a hobby kit, which consists of 50 magnets, a set of modular Games Workshop trays, 3 sheets of A-floor flexor metal and 3 sheets of magnetic sheeting, and an Army Painter can of black spray for just £30 on top, which is pretty good. That will get you most of the stuff you need to magnetise a unit, at least. I mean, there's 50 magnets in there and a lot of other stuff. It should do quite a few trays and units.
Yeah, with the 2 sheets. I mean, you get loads out of a sheet.
It is. And if you're not sure how to do all that, there's a guide on the sources section that shows you step by step. Or if you listen to the last show, Wayne gives you a little bit of an insight onto how that's done. Finally, there is an event by OG on the 22nd and the 23rd of June for £10 for 1 day or £17.50 for 2. The one's worthwhile. It's using the latest South Coast Grand Tournament comp, which is out now, and the details are on the Warhammer forum, warhammer.org.uk. On to the news.
Coming to you live from Portsmouth, this is the Heelanhammer Network News.
Okay, so the news this week. Well, we're middle of the month, so not a lot really, Wayne, is there going on?
No, after that blinding White Dwarf we had, it's just, it was so much information pounded at us that we forgot now.
Yeah, we have. That said, there was a little bit of news, and it's been all over Twitter. And probably if you haven't got an iPad, you're probably fed up with it by now. But that is the Warhammer Quest app.
Which does look good.
Yeah, so
I haven't got an iPad, but I want one now.
No, we should say so. So Warhammer Quest, for those of you who don't know, was an awesome board game along the lines very much of a sort of a Dungeons and Dragons Hero Quest style thing. I've got it in the loft, and a company presumably bought the license from Games Workshop and produced a top-down game on the iPad for it. Now, iPads, awesome things with games, I find, because I was addicted to Championship Manager, which was a football management game back in the sort of mid-90s, and I downloaded the latest Football Manager on the iPad, and loads of people were saying about the reviews, don't buy it, it's got half the stuff than the main game's got, etc., etc., but it had so much more than the game I used to play years ago that you just didn't care. And so I was very excited to see Warhammer Quest come, because I thought, well, with what they were doing with, if they can do all this with a Football Manager, the amount of data that's stored on there, then this should be just as good. And it's really good. Unfortunately, though, it only works on iOS 6. So you need an iPad 2 or above, or an iPhone. You can do it on an iPhone, but I don't know how you'd play it on an iPhone. It's so small that it would be hard work. I haven't done it, but the iPad's sort of perfect sort of size for it, really. So some highlights for you on it. Overall, I thought it was really good. I wouldn't say it was amazing, the best thing ever, because it has got some downsides which I'll talk about. But the main highlights are that it's true to the original. I've said to you, Wayne, when we were talking about this previously, they've even kept all the abilities like Death Leap, and I think it was called, where the giant rats jump, and if they don't get you in the neck, then you kill them on the way down. They've got a lot of the abilities are called the same thing. There's a few new ones in there, but quite a few of the abilities are called the same thing. The monsters, the bats, and everything look like they did in the Warhammer Quest box set. Like
and it looks and feels the same, doesn't it? Just everything about it.
It does, and I bought the Skaven expansion, so the actual game itself is £3. It's a ridiculous price, isn't it, really? But you buy extra things in-game. Now, sometimes that can get really frustrating on these kind of games if you've played them before, but in this particular case, it really doesn't hamper you. You could spend £3 and you could probably play it in 7-8 hours. It would easily... you'd easily fill up 7-8 hours playing it before you thought of the need of wanting to buy anything else. And really, the additions are you can get 3 extra characters. So you've got an Archmage, which is a high elf, a Warrior Priest, which is the one I bought, and a Troll Slayer, which doesn't look massively exciting in my personal opinion, but because you've already got a dwarf in the main party, you've got a dwarf, an elf, a marauder, and a wizard. So that's the highlights, really. It looks great, plays just exactly like the game, with the way pinning works, the way everything works is basically the same as the game. Now, there might be someone who remembers the game better than me that can tell me there's some small change, but from my memory of the game, it's exactly as it was reproduced, which is great, because I was a bit worried they'd change it. Interesting characters. I thought the whole mix is brilliant, and with the way these games work, there's so much option for it to continually grow by adding more characters and more content packs. But you see a map of the Empire, so you start off in Stirland and you go around killing orc and goblins in low-level areas, and that can get slightly repetitive after a while because you're just killing orcs, goblins, and basically animals like your vicious spiders, and there's a giant vicious spider and like varying different sizes of spider and stuff. But you go around there killing all that, and there's a quest line that goes with it. You see a lot of text and stuff. There's no cutscenes or anything, but presumably that would be far too expensive, and it's not really a problem, is it? I mean, we're used to reading fluff in books and things, and it's the same. It pops up with little boxes telling you the story of what's happening and what's happening to your characters. It's got random encounters when you're going about your place outside of the dungeon. So if you want to travel to the market or you want to do this, every now and then it will like proc something up, but it'll say your man's got press ganged into this for a day, is 50 gold or whatever, or you've been robbed, minus 100 gold. You can buy provisions, and each town's got a separate speciality. So like you can go to say the wizard's store, and it's got in a particular city, it's like a wizard store. You go to the blacksmith in another, or an elven way store or something in another. So they've all got different reasons to be in there, and the map goes all the way around, and there's like 9 settlements in Stirland, and then if you've bought the Skaven expansion pack, the only one that's out, it takes you over to another area, and you can go to Altdorf and Balfenhagen and all that kind of area, and all the Skaven quests around there, and they're brilliant. They've redone a lot of the tiles, so you fight like what I'd call stereotypical dungeon tiles in the orc area. When you get to Skaven one, it's all got Skaven machinery up it, and like there's a board, like on the board tiles, you can only go round the edge because it's done like a mining shaft, so there's a shaft down the middle, so which creates interestingly tactical play because you've got to sort of cover these avenues and things like that. So that's quite cool. And obviously you level up your guys as you go through killing things, which again is a balance like it was in the old game. It's very easy if you just use your marauder, the combat beast, to kill everything first. Your wizard won't get any experience and won't level up. So it's like a bit of a balancing act as it wasn't in the real game. So all that's really good. The bad bits for me, I mean, I'm using an iPad 2, and I'm being told by iPad 4 users they're not really having too many problems, but on an iPad 2 it crashes quite frequently, which can be annoying. It saves it every turn, if you like, so you don't generally lose too much. But I have seen a story on the net this morning that someone got like the most ultimate weapon. It was like the Hammer of Sigmar or something dropped, which is probably some stupid low percent drop rate, and then the game crashed on that turn, so they'd lost it. So there's a few issues with crashes. I've got them where you go into a room and the screen goes black and it pops up like encounter and it lists all the enemies you're going to fight, and then it'll turn black again and crash and freeze, and you have to close it down and go back into it. I've had just random crashes where it flashes off. I've had it where there's a spell that it's called Void Master, and your wizard removes a person into the void and magically heals them and they come back. So if they're pinned, so pinning, for those of you who don't know Warhammer Quest, is when there's a high chance that if an enemy's standing next to you, you won't be able to move because you're distracted by them. And if you Void Master a pinned guy, when he comes back, he's permanently pinned and he can't move, and you just have to leave the dungeon because you can't carry on because you've just got one party member standing in a room by himself. So that was a bit annoying. So there's a few different things, and I think overall in some areas it can get slightly repetitive. Now you can see, Wayne, from Twitter, that there's a lot of chat and a lot of people playing this, so it's not that repetitive, but I found like I can only play it for a few hours at a time and then you get fed up of doing the same thing because you get quite a few times where, and you used to get this when you're playing at home, but it's quicker. Like if you were playing by yourself and there was a board space and nothing was happening, it's very quick to go, right, unless I say I'm casting this and we're moving on, I'm going to heal you up and do this. On the game, of course, you've got to keep pressing it. So if you need to cover, say, 26 tiles in a long corridor, you've got to double tap each member individually and move them up and then end turn. So that can get frustrating, but I'm not really sure what they can do about that. And yeah, it can get slightly repetitive in places. The Skaven one was better, actually, for it felt like there was more different troop choices. You had like different gutter runners, death runners, assassins, Greyseers, Globadiers, different types, Greyseer, Rat Ogre, Masterbred Rat Ogre was in there, which I thought was a nice nod to the game, and things like that. And you had a lot of different troop types. So that seemed a bit more better, and the quest seemed a bit more detailed and clever, where the other one was a bit more straightforward. So, but I think the options to do lots of different things all around the Warhammer world is going to make that a brilliant game to expand on. I really just hope they do the Lost Kingdoms one that we talked about in last Once White Dwarf, where you can get Illustria. That'd be quality if you go to the seaports and all that. But
there was loads of extra characters, wasn't there, in the old game? You'd get be a war dancer and stuff like that, wasn't there?
Yeah, war dancer, witch elf, seafarer,
Chaos Warrior.
Witch Hunter, I think I've already said. There was loads of them, yeah. Well, there wasn't loads. There was infinite. There was.
I'll probably just see
number.
how popular the game is, and then there are bound to be other expansions that come out.
Yeah, and you would have thought it's the same game engine. It's just different artwork and different stories. But for me, the main thing that would hold my interest is the interest in the story. I quite like the Skaven one because it felt a little bit more like there was an ongoing story. So, like, you went to spoilers. Skip forward 2 minutes if you don't want to hear. I haven't got to the end of the Skaven bit. I'm almost there. I'm 15 hours in, I think, or something. And but that's what it says on the app. I don't know how much of that's active game time and how much is the app being open, but I think it was about 15 hours. And it, you go to like Altdorf and there's a warrior, like an Archlector's turned up because the Skaven's ringing a bell, or Gracie is ringing a bell and trying to poison the whole town. And he's trying to play like a political game and set you off against another clan. So he sets you off and you're going to kill another clan leader, thinking you're helping him, and he's like, haha, you're not. And then the Archlector goes to send you to kill the Gracie and all this kind of stuff. It goes on and it's quite cool. And there's different levels of difficulty, but on occasion you get like one dungeon you go in and you think this is a breeze, and then suddenly you just get like attacked and you just like getting bundled in this room, and it's quite cool. There's one particular one when you've done all the sort of right at the end of that area, so right at the end of Stirland, when you've done all the quests, you get what they call like a black dungeon. And you've probably seen the pictures of people tweeting this way where there's like 1 billion black orcs just charging into a room, and it repeatedly happens, and it's really, really hard. But that's quite good because in some dungeons it feels like you can't die, depending on the setup of your men. But that's also one of the other downsides is your abilities are random. So like my wizard can't kill anything. It's just got all healing spells, bar one spell. But then other people's wizards can solo rooms because they've just got so much pew that they just walk in and blow things away. So some of that's a little bit frustrating. But generally, brilliant game. And if you've got spare £3, why wouldn't you buy it if you've got an iPad? If you're into Warhammer, you want to buy it. So there you go, Warhammer Quest. So thanks to Rodeo Games for that. I think you've done a great job. There's a couple of bits of improvement that can be made, I'm sure, and I'm really looking forward to the next expansion. So cheers for that. Right, that's pretty much it with the news at this particular point as we're recording. Middle of the month. There's not a lot on. Any news that you've seen, Wayne?
No, none at all. I mean, we are recording this not that far from the last show that was 2 shows.
Yeah. It's almost 3 shows in a week, isn't it, or something silly, but yeah.
Yeah, so obviously not a lot's happened since then.
No. So with that in mind, I think we'll take a short break and then we'll come back and do the topic of the day, the best army in Warhammer.
Lately, things haven't been working out, have they? I mean, you must have noticed it. I mean, there was a time when me and you were wonderful together. We really were, but things are different now. It just doesn't seem to be the spark they used to be. And I think it's time we had a change and maybe went our separate ways. And I've decided to collect Empire.
Okay, and we're back. So the topic of the day, so this topic, the best army in Warhammer, is something that gets asked a lot on the internet, doesn't it? It's always, what is the best army? What is the best unit? And ultimately, that there isn't an answer, is there, Wayne, overall?
No, definitely not. Because most of it comes down to what you're playing against.
It is.
Trying to sort them out into 16, into like a league table, if you like. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, we've just done it now. It took me about half an hour. Wayne's done it in 2 minutes because I pressured him, but I thought it was an interesting concept then to try and chat between the two of us of what we've picked and sort of why. So we have tried to do it. There is no right answer, and this is all fictitious in a way. Not fictitious, it's just based on opinion, and a lot of them are so close overall, as we'll see. I think with the way 8th edition's gone, and Games Workshop doing such a good job with the books, it is actually tight. I don't think it's something that easy, but hopefully you'll understand the reasons why we've put things where we are. But the main thing is, it is just for fun. Yeah, this is not a primary reason to go and collect an army. Don't go because we've put whatever we've put at number 1. Go, it is the best because Heelanhammer said it's the best. Because there's just as many arguments we can give you why we think it's the best. There's someone who can give you an answer of why something else is. And it also very much depends on your gaming group. You know, if you'll go down your local gaming group and there's some dude there that just runs over the top of you with his Warriors of Chaos every week, you're going to think Warriors are the most broken thing ever. But I mean, this is coming from 2 experienced war gamers, both in tournament and friendly play, so hopefully we've got some sort of valid opinion on a spectrum of armies, and we get to see things as tournament organisers as well. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're right. So just bear in mind, it is our personal opinions at a given point in time. Now, we've set ourselves a few rules. We presume in that it's 2,400, that it's no composition, because I think that's important, because otherwise it comes down to what comp pack you're playing in. So we had to take the comp away. So no comp, probably pitch battle, and probably a 20-0 point system. So not win, loss, draw. Although ultimately I don't think the scoring system makes too much of a difference on race-wise. It's more on whether they're slightly better than another in the system. But that's the same with composition. You get some of this list, I think, drastically changes when you put it under certain comp packs. So if you're playing under ETC restrictions, then it would vary to no comp. So just bear that in mind. And that's it, really. So should we go with the list, Wayne? So what have you got in number 16?
Wood elves.
Wood elves. Why have you put wood elves?
I've done this in 2 minutes.
No.
I've got a lot of reasons. You very rarely see wood elves at tournaments, yeah, because they might do well against certain armies if the player's like really practiced, but in general they struggle because they haven't had a book for so long, and with the current game in the style that it plays, I just think they just struggle in general.
Yeah. And what aspect of the game do you think is there one particular phase that you think they're struggling, or?
I think there's nothing in the army that adds real kind of staying power. There's like most armies have got a block or a heavy armoured, monstrous infantry unit that can kind of stick around and grind out and kind of hold the line, whereas wood elves don't really have that. And obviously I haven't played against many wood elves in recent years, a couple. So kind of like there's nothing, experience playing against them. There's not a great deal to draw on, but I'd say from the fact that you don't often see them, that's got to tell you something about the power level.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And fun enough, my number 16 is wood elves. Yeah, we match wood elves. And I think most people would put them here. There's actually a lot of positives with wood elves. I think I can't remember if I talked about it in a recent show. I had a little hobby wobble the other day, and I wanted to get mine back out as one of my first loves. And I started painting some models and building some dryads and things. And those of you that are on the Saucy and seen Dan's Den will have seen what I've been up to. And I started looking at lists, as you do. You think, I'm not going to look at lists, and then you start looking at lists. And they're exactly what you said. There is no staying power, endurance, combat punch that's hard enough in the current game, I think. Dryads were great shop troops back in the day, and the manoeuvrability of those and the way the archers worked was perfect for the edition. In this edition, when you've got Mournfang, Juggernauts, Demigriffs, all that kind of stuff running at you, what do you do about it?
Yeah,
Stuff just murders you. I mean, you end up with, your unit of war dancers, right? Brilliant little unit war dancers used to be. What do they do now? What can you charge?
Just get run over.
You can't even charge slaves with them because they're just going to get beaten up. Or even zombies would probably kill you. So yeah, unfortunately that's what's brought it down. So it's one of the books I'm really hoping when it comes out that they do almost reinvent the wheel with it and how it works, because I want to see that back up. But yeah, I agree with you. Again, I think that if you really want to play wood elves and you want to pick wood elves, that's fine. I think from a competitive point of view, you're going to be struggling slightly uphill, and you're also, there's an argument your gameplay could be pretty samey, which is basically avoiding and shooting people for that many turns because your combat options are limited. Even if you take, say, a dragon or something, which dragon and 3 treatment, well, you wouldn't get 3, but 3 treatment, or dragon and 2 treatment or something like that, I think you're still going to find yourself in a position where a lot of time you just want to sit off and strangle root people and breath them. So. But yeah, what else? We both went for the same one. That's a good start. So what's in your 15 then, Wayne?
I think I've got this wrong. Well, the hard thing about this, the more you look at the list, the harder it gets because you're switching things around. But 15 Tomb Kings.
Okay, why Tomb Kings?
I just think they're very dull in their game style, in their gameplay. They're the only 2 lists that I've seen are very one-dimensional. It's either the big shooting list because it's got Khalida in it. Obviously, I take it we're not taking special characters. Or there's the army that takes loads of snakes. And they just don't really offer much variation in play. And I'm thinking about the whole, against all the other armies.
Yeah, of course. And we're talking no comp as well.
Yeah.
And
trying to match against all the other armies. And I don't think they cut it. I'm sure there'll be loads of Tomb King players out there that don't agree with that. But yeah. So
you've impressed me with your knowledge there, mate. I like your reasons. The 2 builds you picked are primarily the 2 kind of builds that are out there, I think, for real sharp, having done well on a UK tournament anyway. So, no, I haven't got Tomb Kings, but it's very close to you. Mine's in 14, so we'll go with that. But so Tomb Kings, I agree with you, man. I think they're a cool army. I think they're a really good, really nice army. I think they're very rewarding to play if you can do it. But I know you said they were dull. I'm not sure about dull, but they're not very dynamic, I suppose is the best word.
I think the biggest mistake they made with them was not allowing them to march.
Exactly, because my point is I think they're a bit slow because you can't, if your opponent sits off you, how many turns does it take to get across the board? And that, again, forces you to think about snakes and chariots and things that
you've got a flying unit in it. That's actually quite good. But it only moves 10 inches, so it just hampers them massively.
It is, and the combat troops are a little bit a bit average.
Mediocre.
Mediocre, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, a little bit average. And they crumble as well, so you get a bad combat round.
Yeah.
And it's not just a case of you taking a break test or something. You're going to lose significant amount of models. You've not really got any re-rolls, and you're quite reliant on your magic. So again, in a no-comp situation, this is slightly better because you can get more power dice. You can get Pyro Titans or Power Stones, whatever, to help you with that a little bit. But you need you need that magic really to do it. But I think the actual main power on the list is, as you say, is either stupid amounts of shots with Khalida or it's big Necro Knight units or something. But again, that changes if suddenly scenarios are brought in and you need to win a watchtower. I mean, what do you take? I mean, you could take Tomb Guard, they're not awful, and some other again, special characters can make a difference with that. I mean, you get Ramatep if you want to take it, a special character in a knight unit. That's pretty cool as well. So I don't think they're terror bad, to want to use an internet phrase. But
I don't think any of the arms are. I think they've all got their merits.
Yeah, but you've got them in 15. I've got them in 14. So they're pretty low down there.
What's your 15 then?
My 15 was Beastmen. I thought they were. I actually think Beastmen are one of those weird armies where sometimes they're awesome, but sometimes they're just dire. It really just depends on the kind of comp and everything else. But I think in pure no comp, they, without any boosts or anything else, when everyone else can take everything, I think they struggle a little bit. I mean, they've got psychology issues. Now, again, you might say, well, I know, well, they've got a high leadership general, you've got battle standard, but if you've ever tried to play a Beastman army, which I have in a tournament, when you got two hordes, which nearly every Beastman army I've ever seen has got two hordes in it at least, your bubble, if you like, is very tiny. It's just the two units most of the time. You might get one on the flank if you're lucky, and that's two. And it's not enough. Not with the amount of psychology you've got to take in the army, I think. So that's one issue. Because I had two hordes, and I had 2 units of Minotaurs on the flanks, and I couldn't cover them. Couldn't cover them in psychology, if you like. So, and they're only low leadership. So that was a bit of a problem. And I think the main one, though, if I'm going to put a problem on the army, is the support units aren't good enough. You think of a lot of armies, you'd class, say, Skinks as support units, or what else? Illyrian Reavers, however that's pronounced. The Reavers in the High Elf army, Pterodons, small units of 5 knights. Well, Warriors armies got them in abundance, just a chariot. Those kind of like not blocks but support units are so overcosted and have a problem with leadership and lots of other reasons that make them mean that the army's a bit one-dimensional. Sometimes it's even magic heavy at the real sharp, and it needs to be often double level 4. And maybe the Herdstone, maybe not, but that kind of build. And then it's just like chariots and bits and bobs. But the bits and bobs aren't necessarily either fast enough or have the leadership, reliability, and all that kind of stuff to make it work. So that's the reason I've picked them there.
I mean, the chariots are the support units.
Yes, yeah, but they are.
They are cheap, and they're good. For the for points you're paying for them, I think they're pretty good. So that was your 15.
That was my 15. Yeah, what was yours?
Mine was Tomb.
Oh, yeah, yours. Yeah. What was your 14 then?
Bretonnians.
Oh, yeah.
I just think Bretonnians are the rules for the knights is very dated in the sense that they go in with their lance, they do a lot of damage, and then they kind of stop, and then that's it. They've had it. And the only lists that you'll see that are kind of trying to grind out are the ones there where you don't ever get to fight knights because you're just fighting characters with 1-up rerollable saves.
Yes.
And as soon as those characters die, that's it. You've had it.
Or you're playing a lot of Killing Blow or something.
Yeah. So I've got them low down because they just haven't got the variety in the list to actually. Don't get me wrong, they can deal with stuff because obviously the trebuchets can kill stuff, and but I think hopefully when a new book comes out from the knights, the variation between knights will be greater. They'll specialise in certain things, which will make a much more interesting list.
Yeah, I have got Brett's a little bit far down. I've got them in 12, so I've got one in between yours, but I've got them in 12. I thought they're good, but they lack number of attacks. Like you say, the whole knight thing is number of attacks. There's no real re-rolls, and it's a one-trick game plan, isn't it? It's just kind of like a Warriors game plan, but without all the awesome punch. Lovely army, really enjoyable, but we're talking about pure power in this terms. I'm not sure in a no-comp environment when people can bring what they want.
Yeah.
that the Bretts are going to cut it. And also, I think with even if you start going into no comp out the book Warhammer and talk scenarios, for example, I mean, we're talking pitched here, but if you weren't, entering buildings and things is a bit of a nightmare. So and again, psychology can cause them a problem. So they have got in good ways, they've got some awesome magic items, but again, you struggle on slots and points to put them in, especially the arcane. The arcanes I think are really good, but you struggle often to get the points to put them in. And wizards being now miscasting and blowing half a unit away quite regularly, I think is a real problem. So that's a bit of a shame. I mean, you got good trebs. So the list as a whole, like we've seen with many of these in this gap, in this list, are quite close together, and there's arguments to put them either way. But I think in pure no comp, they would sit at my number 12, and you've got them at number 14. Do you say
14? Yeah,
14. So I had one in between them. So my 13 is Orc and Goblins.
This is a massive contrast, as we'll find later.
Yeah. See, the internet will disagree with me at the moment and tell me Orc and Goblins have just won the South Coast GT. They've won another event.
Anything to do with you losing 8 on a row?
No.
We sure?
No, I think that the Orc and Goblins, in the current tournament environment, under the composition system we are playing, are much higher than this. But I think if we're looking at pure out of the book Warhammer, no comp, I think they're down in the bottom pack. Not bottom pack, because the bottom pack's pretty solid. I mean, you've got Bretts in there, for example, which I don't think are a massively bad list. I'm not even sure Tomb Kings or Beastmen are that bad, so it's bottom relative, but still reasonably strong. But I think in no comp Warhammer, they're a bit of a problem. I think overall, just the problem with them is over a quantity of matchups. I don't think they're as good as they can be shown to be under the right matchup. So if you're playing Skaven, if you're playing against Ethereals, that kind of stuff, it can really wreck them. It just happens to be at the moment with a lot of monstrous cavalry and Empire kicking around and warriors in the English scene, they're destroying things. But I'm not sure that overall they're actually that good. And I think as well, for me, the big issues really is with the reliability of them. Not necessarily the animosity, although it can cause a problem, but just war machines blowing up. There's no re-rolls and that kind of stuff, low psychology, and just the combat troops. They've got what I call Saurus syndrome, where you've got low initiative, medium-ish, all right weapon skill, but no re-rolls, and you just don't do enough in combat, basically. And it means that you don't see, apart from Savage Orc units, which have got a high quantity of attacks, you don't generally see Orc units, do you? You just don't see them. Orc combat units, you don't see Black Orcs anymore in competitive
No, I think the
lists.
tournament play, there's kind of the list that's fixated on with the 2 big blocks and all the war machines. I'm probably upset with you, but I don't think that's the way to go with them long term. But it's obviously worked for a few people, right? So especially against, if you get the matchups like Andy did when he played loads of Chaos Warrior armies, and it was perfect against those because it's just war machined them off the table.
Don't tell me where you've put yours on your list, because if yours is nowhere near me, don't tell me. Keep it a secret.
It's nowhere near you.
Ooh, okey-doke. So I put them down there in 13. So just to recap for those so far, I had 16 Wood Elves, 15 Beastmen, 14 Tomb Kings, 13 Orc and Goblins, and 12 Bretts. And you had?
My 16 Wood Elves, 15 Tomb Kings, 14 Bretonians. My 13 is Beastmen. So I've got them just above the Bretts because I think in the after the first turn, obviously with the big blocks, they can grind.
So that's pretty good, actually. So that's only one between us that we haven't got. I've put Orc and Goblins in my sort of bottom bit, and you haven't.
But your 12 is Orcs and Goblins, yeah?
No, my 13 is Orc and Goblins.
What's your 12?
My 12 is Bretts. So what's your 12?
Chaos Dwarfs.
So you got Chaos Dwarfs down there, yeah?
That's 12, yeah.
Mine's not far from you. Mine's in 10, actually. But so why Chaos Dwarfs down there?
They're kind of they're an odd list, aren't they? You don't really see any blocks unless you've got.
We tend to see 1, 2 hobgoblins possibly, but yeah.
And the army's just really odd. It doesn't even look or feel like a Warhammer army.
No, it's a collection of small models, isn't it? That are quite reliant.
And against some armies, I've played against with my Skaven, and it's worked for the Chaos Dwarf player, and it's just absolutely torn me apart. But there's no consistency. I find the consistency of the army against all the other lists is really poor, very, very up and down. It's very skewed because it's such an odd list.
Yeah,
so that's why I've got them I've got them quite low.
Yeah, I mean, I've got them in 10th, and I've put. I think in some composition systems they can be a lot higher. It really just depends on the composition system. I think in no comp, with the amount of different units and combos people can bring, I think they lack the flexibility to compete with some of the lists I've got higher. I'm not saying they can't compete, because they would. They are generally, they're quite gimmicky though. You can really end some games extremely quickly. and sometimes you can't. I mean, it's a real shame because I love Chaos Dwarfs. If they were, I don't really rate. Unfortunately, this is going to get me shouted at by Chaos Dwarf players, but I don't see the Tamarakan book as actually a book. I see it as a hobby supplement thing. I don't think it should be in tournaments. I don't see it as a real book. It hasn't got the variety to make it so. I don't think it's just a nice allied contingent you could put in a fluff game from my perspective. But it has made its way into tournaments.
No, I know where you come from there because it doesn't fit in with the rest of the books, does it?
No, and to be fair, we've been party to making it acceptable. People asked me a long time ago whether we'd include it in the South Coast, and my initial reason was no, we're not going to, and we decided under pressure too. And as one of the bigger tournaments, people sometimes take the lead from what we do, and I'm not saying that's just that because people did want them in, but it is kind of an accepted list now. But whether that's actually, I know quite a few people don't deem them a real list. But anyway, sorry, Chaos Dwarf fans. I'm also a Chaos Dwarf fan, but I'm not sure about them in tournaments, but the power in the build I think is in the potential low risk combo build. So your Hell Cannon Death, the Kadai ruins some people that can't deal with it and don't know how to deal with it. But then you see it's the same as A-bomb players will tell you that Skaven Abominations are rubbish. They die all the time. Kadai players will tell you how many times they failed the toughness test at the minute the first turn caused them 3 wounds and then taken a load of wounds and done nothing and the frenzy and all the rest of it. So there's arguments for both, but the Kadai, if they can't deal with it, it's like the A-bomb, you're just going to run over the world. But it's a bit the same as the A-bomb. If you can deal with it, it's going to come off in one round probably. But the difference in the Skaven army is you don't have the reliance on that as much as you do with the Chaos Dwarf. So but I thought it was still had a reasonable power, so I went with 10th. But you've got it further down, which I can see. Definitely. So my 11 then, I had dwarfs. Now that's quite low down for a list that potentially could do. Well, it's not really low down, is it? Because it's in there with Chaos Dwarfs, Bretonnians, Orc and Goblins, and when you see what's in 9, it's in good company. But I find they're very safe. But I think pace is an issue in 8th, although they can charge a reasonable distance. I think the lack of support units makes them easy to dictate what charges you're going to have. It makes them, if people stand off them and have the ability to take the war machines and whittle them down, they just can't win unless you're playing something quirky. I really like the I haven't played it, the scouting list with all the miners and the anvil, and you run around charging things from all angles of the board.
I've played against that.
It's a complete headache. I played it in ETC practice, and it had something like 2 units of 20 miners, a unit of small miners, scouting rangers, and an anvil and the war machine. And the only thing it deployed was the war machines. And I was like, well, what is this all about? Considering I deploy in the corner, it's quite hard to do that when someone could do that. So there are some cool builds, and I've had some emails from some people over the years telling me about different fun dwarf builds, and I've had a good game against dwarfs myself before. So they can be good like that, but I do think they have an issue competitively like that. Where I watched a guy at the South Coast playing them, and he deployed deep as he would do, and the Orc and Goblin player he played deployed kind of in a crescent opposite him and just didn't advance. And then he went, I've got to try and advance, and just kept trying to advance. But 6 inches a turn, you're not going to fight anything. And that is a problem for me. Scoring system dependent, because if it's win-loss draw, there's a lot higher chance that you'll do better, I think, with that. And the other thing is, I think they're infantry dependent, which in the current meta isn't great, is it? When you've got a lot of monstrous cavalry and stuff running around with stomps and things like that, although your artillery is potentially quite good against them and very accurate, I think that ultimately if a unit makes their intact, it can kind of go in waves. And the same with the chariots. You think of the warriors army charging all those chariots into those great weapon hammers, they don't last very long. So they're not bad.
I've got mine as 9th dwarfs.
Oh good, so not far away again.
I've got a sort of bit higher than you, because I just think in a no comp environment, with the amount of war machines they can field, they can end you in one turn. They can literally take all your effectiveness out in one turn, and any army that can do that is, so 9's sort of almost middle of the pack.
Okay, so what have you got in 11 then?
I've got Dark Elves.
Dark Elves.
Once the
contrast,
the almighty, battering everyone army. I just think Dark Elves are only really good in a really good player's hands. For all of the sort of normal players out there, the average players out there, I think as the books have progressed, I think they're getting harder and harder. I mean, I played against them on Thursday, and because the Coldwell Knights, for example, because they haven't got a 1-up save. Well, I don't like the 1-up saves anyway, because they got 2-up save. You can kill them, and you can kill them fairly quickly. And the rest of it, as the big problem with elves is they're toughness 3 with not a lot of armour.
No.
So you can grind through them pretty quick. I mean, the Hydra's obviously very good, but one cannon shot sorts that out. So the Dark Elves are. I like the army. I do like the army Dark Elves, but yeah, I've got them in as 11.
Well, I'm going to leave my Dark Elves because there is a sharp contrast between what you've put and what I put. So I'll leave them as we climb the ladder. So that's cool. So to recap on that little bit then, I had Dwarfs 11, Chaos Dwarfs 10, Brett's 12. So what did you have in that little segment from sort of 12?
I had 12 was Chaos Dwarfs, 11 was Dark Elves. So now we're into the top 10.
We are in the top 10. So I had Chaos Dwarfs. What did you have in 10th?
High Elves.
High Elves, yeah. Early days on them, isn't it? I found them really hard to place. So what made you think about them there?
Similar to the Dark Elves, they're toughness 3, not much armour, squishy. Hate war machines, they just obliterate them in no time at all. They've got a lot of new toys and the magic. I like, some people said they don't like the Lawmaster. I do. That ability to have all those signature spells, I think, is awesome. I think they look like a really fun army to play because they've got a variation, with obviously with the Phoenix and stuff like that now. But yeah, I just think there's quite a few armies that can deal with their troops quite quickly. But obviously you're getting into the, I find this middle pack is the hardest bit. It is.
I agree with you.
And these armies could shift, 2 or 3 slots quite easily with, a bit of constructive argument.
No, this was the pack that I had the hardest amount of time with, but I've got high elves quite a bit higher. So again, I'll leave my reasons when we get there. So that was your 10, did you say?
Yes.
So okay, and I had Chaos Dwarf. So 9 then. What have you got?
Dwarves.
Okay. Well, you've covered your reasons for dwarfs. Have you got anything else to say on them?
No.
I've got controversial maybe, but I've got demons. In 9th, I think that although they're extremely fun, I love the book. I think in no composition system, they're actually, although they've got a lot of units, I think from a competitive point of view, they're limited to a lot of Zinch and Nurgly type things. At least that's what the builds I'm seeing on the competitive scenes on your ETC and people talking about. And I think that ultimately it would lead in a no comp to not being, again, this is a middle pack. I think this is a pack all very, very close to each other, but I think it would find itself having a hard time against what I've rated as the top sort of 3, say, in that kind of bracket. So, and the average Joe player playing them, I think, would struggle in a no comp against some of the top ones. But again, really good book. They've got some great options and some real good fun options. But yeah, that's why I put them in 9. Is I think that ultimately the sheer power isn't quite as there. But when we talk about why I've got 3 books in my 3 books area, you'll kind of see how this all fleshes out. But yeah,
I've got demons in 7th.
Yeah, so yours are not far off. Yeah, and what was your reasons for you putting demons there?
I think the variation of units, because you look through the book and there's I always find lists that have got a real contrast in what the units do make for, when you compare them against all the other armies, it means you've always got some tool that counters what your opponent's got.
Yeah.
And I just think they have. Obviously, they're always better in a better player's hands, but that's the same with any army.
Yeah, of course.
But I like the demons. I think they're very flexible.
Yeah, I do. Again, I think they're good. And when you see what else I've got in this pack, it could be easily any everywhere. So I had in 8th, I had vampires. What did you have?
Vampires
in 8th. Yeah. I thought very exactly middle of the pack, aren't we now? On 8. And I've always thought they're better than how they seem. I don't think they've ever won a major tournament in the UK. They don't place that well, but I keep looking at them and I hate playing against them. I think they're horrible.
Yeah.
But I think maybe it's just fear syndrome where I don't play them enough anymore. I keep meaning to get mine out actually and give them a go because I keep looking at them thinking these are really, really good, but you just don't see anybody doing that well with them. I mean, Darren Watson had a good run at the South Coast GT, didn't he? He was unlucky not to finish higher, but I do think there's potential there, which is why I've put them in this top sort of 8.
The same as you, I don't like playing against them. So they don't like, enjoy the games and that, but I always find them, I can't, maybe it's just a mental block, but I'm always struggling, how am I getting hold of the general?
Yeah, and I find it a bit of a nightmare. And like Crypt Horrors and stuff, I find it generally with the armies I'm playing, they're horrible to deal with.
Crypt
they come back so easy. Against Skaven, it's like an eye win, and you just can't kill them. So, quite tough. The one thing about vampires from a downside perspective, I mean, they've got so many pros, right? So you've got ethereal characters, ethereal units, terrorgeists, Hex Wraiths used in quantity can be a real catch-out thing if you're not used to playing them and you haven't seen them before. I'm sure if you played against Hex Wraiths a lot, you'd just get used to them and there wouldn't be an issue. But like every time I look at Hex Wraiths on a list, I think, ooh, shudder, it's going to be horrible. And the Ethereals, to stop your monstrous cav units and the things that dominate the game at the moment, they look quite nasty. The Vampire Lord himself is an absolute combat beast. But then I know from playing Vampire Lords that they do die. They do die. It can be cannonballs. It can be just quantity of attacks will bring one down. So it's normally something silly as well that brings them
normally
down.
res that kills them.
Yeah, or res. They kill the block around you.
Get it with the res.
Yeah, there's always some. It will find a vampire will always find some way to die or try to die. Obviously, because it just presumably after the battle it gets up and walks off into the sunset and raises a new army. But some way to not play. And I think as well, just generally the speed. Movement 4 armies just have a general problem about getting the board if people don't want to play. I found it when I went to the Sheffield Slaughter in January. I took a Lizardman build that I just had what I painted, a load of movement 4 stuff, no Scar veterans, nothing that moved quicker than 4 that could fight. And some games where people put it, I played 3 games where people just put it in the corners. I couldn't reach until turn 5. And by the time they redirected me and stuff, and you can't kill anything. And I think the vampires suffer that. If you have a Vampire Lord on foot, he's normally in a movement 4 delivery system. So, and I think that's that kind of restriction, and maybe that's why we don't see so much. Because if you put him on a cavalry bus in a big cavalry unit, that tends to win big for a few games and then get smashed for a few games because ultimately it's vulnerable. I mean, I've killed vampire buses with Skaven in a round sometimes with the amount of shooting you can put into them.
Yeah.
They do die. So, yeah, interesting list though. I think vampires are one of those that I still think are better than they are, and I should probably visit them at some point to try and prove this, but I do think they're solid. So what have you got in 7th then, Wayne?
In 7th, I've got... I had the demons in 7th.
Oh, yeah, cool. So what have you got in 6th?
Ogres.
I think yours close to mine. I got 7th, I've got ogres, so ogres roughly around the same. And why did you pick ogres in there?
I think there's not a lot of variation in the list as such, but what they've got smashes hard. The Gut Star, the Iron Blasters. They just kind of, what they do very well. The magic is good. And it complements the units very, very well. They're great at grinding stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
They're just one of those armies, and they consistently do okay in tournaments. Either very well or they never really do badly. And obviously, Mournfang are fantastic. Yeah,
I agree. I think they're one of those that if you'd been asked to select your armies, what were we? Probably December the year before last, not last December. Maybe. When did they come out? Yeah, was it last year? No, it wasn't. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. No, it must have been the year before. Yeah, year before.
It was the year before. Yeah.
If you'd picked this December 2011, I think they'd be top of the pile from an English perspective. You'd be thinking they were smashing tournaments, they were beating everybody. No one could beat them because people hadn't adapted their army. And then as the books have come out and people have adapted, they find themselves in our pick, sort of middle to top third. Which is how I see them. I think they're really solid. They've got potential to smash players, but the variation in terms of competitive build, I don't think is massively there. You generally have a Gut Star, which is just a unit of Iron Guts with all your characters in, and maybe a unit of Mournfang or 2, Iron Blaster or 2. See, in no comp, I think they're better than they are in others, because you'll have 2 Iron Blasters, 2 Mournfang unit, and a Gut Star, which is pretty good. Or you might have 3 2s of Mournfang to make use of the multiple small units. There's lots of things you can do. But yeah, they're the sort of top third for me. But
what was your number 6?
My number 6 was High Elves, which you already had. Now, High Elves, I really don't know where to put these. I don't think the internet seems to be singing about them a little bit, and I'm not sure they're as good as people are making out. I think ultimately they're still High Elves, and they've lost re-rolls. I mean, we're going to get Simon Hoef back on the show to give an update after he's played probably 4 games by the time I get him back.
He's been playing regularly, because I saw him down the club last Thursday.
He's been down the club every week.
And the week before, he almost rage quit on him.
Yeah, he did he?
Yeah, he wasn't happy with him at all.
No, I think I saw him getting taken off the week before or something as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
So they're not,
But then he's not playing. He's playing a lot of different units to find out. I'm interested to see.
Yeah, he's trying it all, basically.
I'm in Denmark in the European Championships warm-up next weekend, and there's a lot of High Elves there and a lot of shooty High Elves. So I'm interested to see how they do. But, I mean, I've put them up there because I think they seem to be safe. I think with the Frost Phoenix, the multiple units of core fast cavalry, Eagles, all the kind of redirectors and things, plus your shooting and the magic, I think there's a potential to make them really, really hard to beat. And if you were playing no comp, I think with the Banner of the World Dragon and all that kind of stuff, there's a good chance that they could be quite strong. I just don't know. I honestly don't know if they're that high. the way the internet's talking about them, you think they'd be in the top 2, but I actually think they're in that middle pack for certain.
You always get that with new books, though, don't you? I'm sort of looking at it in sort of. I'm judging it off how Simon has got on trying lots of different units down the club, and he's not smashing people.
No, I look at it and I can't see from the book like a sheer no-brainer power like some of the lists you can. I don't think they're bad at all. So don't misquote me.
No, I don't think they're bad. I just don't think they're. I don't think they're a top list.
I don't think they're all in no comp. I think the current. You'll see why I think this in a minute. Okay, good. So 5. What have you got in 5?
My boys, the Rats, are in 5.
You got the Rats in 5, eh? Well, why have you got them in 5? And then I'll tell you what I got in 5.
I think they're one of them odd. They're still, even though the list is is starting to get old. They've just got. They're very different to a lot of our armies, but they've just got these quirky tools that deal with stuff. The war machines, some of the magic items like Doom Rocket, it was absolutely awesome for like smashing that big unit and bringing it down to a size we can go into combat with it. I think Storm Vermin for 7 points each are fantastically priced. The Bell does something odd. They just there's a real variation in the list, and the Magic, 13th, that's always a game turner. I just think they've still got the tools to deal with pretty much anyone.
No, I agree with you. We'll see where I've put them in a minute, but I haven't got them quite as low as you. So I had 5th. I had the Empire. Flexible, combined arms, varying troop choices, which I think is always important in a competitive list overall. Again, although you do see some choices spammed in competitive lists, generally there's a selection of them. It's not like there will be a mix of say combat and stuff, and unless they can't, like warriors, as we'll chat about. So I think the varying troop choices is good for them. They've got high armor. And if you take the right choices, they're quite high leadership, good magic, and very customizable in a way that the Lizard Man are when we talk about them, where you know all the laws. Basically, you can customize it. You can have double level 4 if you want. They're not that expensive and still fit things in. So I think they're really good. Depending on in this is no comp. I think sometimes in comp, if they're not done rightly, they can be higher than some of the other ones. But in no comp, I think the actual level of lists you see in a comped environment wouldn't be much higher in a no comp. I think people would just have the tank, the 2 demis, and the 2 cannons, which a lot of comp these days it seems to be cancelling out, probably rightly so. And then they might have a war altar with a light council or something, and that would be the kind of the list that. The TM net list, if you're going to pick a net list for Empire, I think that's what it would be. You would have War Altar, Light Wizards, 2 Demigriffs, 2 cannons, steam tank, and build whatever's left, which isn't a lot, around that. But again, people will disagree, but that's how I see the nets list, as it were. And for me, the strength in the list is all about Demigriffs plus magic. And the ability to sit off and force people to come to you by using your cannons and your magic. And that's why when the comp hits the cannons and things like that, and the Demigriff units, it becomes a lot harder. So that's why I've got them in 5th. So what have you got then in your 5th? You've got Skaven. So
4th is Empire.
And you put them there for what, similar reasons to me? Or?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because they've got that kind of tools to deal with anyone. And the same thing, but I think I'll put them slightly higher than Skaven because obviously when the Skaven start getting whittled down and the leadership starts going and they start, it all starts running away. But obviously the Empire don't have that problem because their leadership doesn't get changed. And I think with the magic as well, being able to buff halberdier units, and obviously the Demigriffs are very, very good at grinding stuff out, and the 1-up armor save, which I hate.
Really?
So that's why they're higher than Skaven.
I think the more I've played
and
Empire,
obviously cannons.
Yeah, cannons. Well, it goes without saying. I think the more I play Empire, the more actually I think they're a more exciting list than I gave them credit for. If you start to mix the units up, if you take there'd be a brilliant one of everything list. I think really good fun one of everything list, and you can still do a reasonably competitive list with one of everything on that. So the more I played them, the more fun they've been, and I'm looking forward at some point to sort of revisit in mine. Although I'm playing them right now until the ETC probably, and then I'll hand them back to Jack. So, okay, now your 4, mine was Warriors. What did you have? Let me tell you about Warriors first, and then you can tell me what you got in 4. I thought that the sheer combat power, again, you could argue these could be higher, but I think no comp, the lists I've picked, which the sharp-eyed ones would have seen now, are 3 7th edition books. I think this is the WOC is the most powerful 8th edition book, and then 3 I've got above it, which we'll see, are all 7th edition books. Is the sheer combat power. So they've just got a ton of it in abundance, and it's high toughness, high armor, which can cause a problem for some of the traditional lists. But they are high risk and one dimensional, so which is why I've put them lower than the ones when we talk about it. I always think the best tournament lists that do consistently tend to be in a 6-game event when you've got a lot of players, the ones that are low risk versus high reward, whereas Warriors are they are the ultimate reward. If you win with Warriors, you win in 20-0, generally, I think, if you get it right. But if you get it wrong, you're losing 20-0 because it's all in. It's like kind of all in at once. So I've got them there. They're basically top, but they didn't quite make what I call the real top tier. But on the other hand, I think they do cause a problem to the 3 that I put above them. Because sometimes in this list, you can look down and you can compare one to the other. So you could say, oh, well, ogres are higher than vampires on Dan's list. But if the ogre player played the vampire player, but I don't think you can compare them like that. This is compared over the spectrum.
Over the whole lot, yeah.
Yeah, so
that's what makes it very difficult, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think so like the Warriors would cause the 3 I put above them problems. But
so you got the Warriors in as 4th?
I got them in 4th, yeah. So what have you got in 4th?
Obviously I've got the Empire.
Oh, yeah, the Empire. So what you got in
So we're getting down to top 3
We're getting down to the top 3, okay. So
the big difference between mine and yours, the first big difference is I've got Orcs and Goblins in as 3rd.
Yes. And why did you go for them in 3rd then? I've told you why I put them right down in 13th.
I think Orcs and Goblins, as a variety of what things can do in the list, I think they're arguably the biggest. There's the biggest variety in that list than any other book. The fact that you can take trolls, obviously, like the Chaos can take trolls. So you've got something that can deal with armored knights with the vomit. Yeah, you've got night goblins which can throw nets to reduce strength by 1, which is a massive thing for, against a lot of armies. The war machines, doom divers, no armor save, rock lobbers, bolt throwers, and they're all cheap. The leadership can be an issue sometimes. But the amount of damage that you can pump out before you get into combat, and then your big blocks like your Savage Orcs are just chariots, 2 different kinds of chariots. Goblin chariots are really, really cheap, but they go fast, and go in and can do a lot of damage. York chariots are a lot tougher, but it's still good for the points. Squigs and small units. I know using the big blocks, obviously that's a big risk, but in the small, there's not many things that you can get that are 2 strength 5 attacks for 8 points at weapon skill 4. Very few things. I don't think there's anything else, any other books that do that actually. No. And they're immune psychology.
Yes.
So, and then you've got your weird stuff like your squig hoppers and everything else that goes with it. I just think Orcs and Goblins are just in the right person's hands are an awesome army. I really like them.
Yeah, no, and again, the thing about this is I can't disagree with any of your choices because you asked 20 different wargamers their top 16 and they were listed in 16 different orders, and all the reasons you are saying are spot on. So
another thing with Orcs and Goblins is I think they've got stronger as the new books have come out.
I agree.
As with Faith, as all the new books, as more and more new books come out, that book's getting stronger.
And also in composition systems, they still get pretty much a free reign. So they will load up on the war machines and the chariots, won't they? And the armies that can't load up on all their best toys, like your warriors and things that are getting comped, obviously it swings the pendulum a bit. So interesting. But in pure no comp, that's the main reason I had them lower, is because I felt that something like a Skaven that I haven't mentioned on my list yet, with 2 Walk Lightning cannons, Doom Rocket, 4 engineers, and all the rest of it would cause them a problem. But no, I agree with you. So you had that in 3rd. What did you have in 2nd? Because I think it's the same as. Oh no, let me tell you about my 3rd then. So I had the Dark Elves in 3rd, which in comp I kind of agree with you. I think they're in the middle pack somewhere.
Yeah.
And because they are incredibly tricky to play when your toys are taken away, because the strength of the book is in the magic items, in my opinion, that and low costed troops. So your spearmen are ridiculous. There's no way they can stay that points when the new book comes out. Shades are cheap, Hydras are cheap, Cauldron ultimately for what it is cheap. So I had them there, and of course the thing that everyone forgets is how good they are uncomped with magic. The stabby dagger for the extra power dice, and not Doom and Darkness, Power Darkness, and all those spells can make the magic phase one of the best in the game. Only beat by my army in the only phase that beats it, in my opinion, is the army I've put in number 2, which we'll talk about in a sec. But it's a close, very, very close. But one of the best phases in the game for reliably getting off your spells as well. And again, risk reward in no comp. It can be quite low risk, high reward. Not as low risk as the 2 above it, I don't think, but in my list. But it can be in comp. I think it forces you to be more risk. which is where the power difference comes from. I think that you can sit back with your death magic and your reliable shadow magic or your whatever in a no comp, in a comp and all your redirectors and stuff. But in a comp, you're probably going to want to start putting Pegasus riders into units, or all that, fleshing out the combat. Which, as you rightly pointed out, they're suddenly toughness 3 elves again, aren't they? That you're putting into toughness 3 elf infantry as well, or cavalry. Which nobody seems to be having that much success with big cavalry units these days because it's a low model count and there's a lot of stuff that kills them with quite high strength. So that was my third. So what did you put in second then, Wayne?
Lizards.
I had lizards too. They were my second. So why second for lizards then?
Slan.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah. Slan.
Well, you think about the army. You take the Slan out, it's very mediocre. You put the Slan in, it's awesome. It is the Slan. The Slan is, and you get so many Lizards players go, oh no, Slan aren't that good. Yes, they are.
Well, their leadership alone is the reason you would.
And the fact that you can take a level 4 who's also your BSB, you can tool him up however you
Comes
want.
with the 4-up
He's
ward,
all
loads of
singing,
wings.
all dancing. And the way he complements the army, he makes everything else in the army work brilliantly.
And what's worse, you can take 2.
You can take 2.
And it makes it arguably better. I mean, the list at the minute. I mean, when I played them in Jan, I only had 1 because I wanted to. That's what I had painted. But if I had another one and I had more models and pew, that's what I'd be taking 2. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in the fluff sense, that's the way Slan should be. They are the ultimate,
Yeah.
But I really believe that there should be on armies of a certain size, that you shouldn't ever be able to take more than 1 Slan in an army up under 3,000 points.
I mean, if you remember back in the old days of Generations when the 5th edition book came out, you had really the only the smaller Slan was that battle active. The rest of them wanted to sit in their temples and stuff. So why would you have 2? Yeah, we put these. We've hardly got any, but let's stick 2 on there. It's a bit like double steam tanks, isn't it? We've hardly got any, but let's put a couple on there.
But they only came out in literally when their city was getting attacked. That's the only time they wouldn't march anywhere, would they?
No. Yeah, let's just go have a fight with them beastmen. They look like they're up for it. Let's go. I can't really see it. But
so having 2 in an army is just like But,
and under my list, I had them because I think they have got the ultimate magic phase. I mean, all the time Rumination's uncomped. If you're playing no comp, it's brilliant. And obviously you could have one with Rumination, one with no all law, or one with the constant reroll miscasts, and one with Rumination. You can brilliant combos you can have. And if you really wanted the full party Slan, as he's known, with the one that knows all the lore, becalming cogitation, it's just amazing. I really miss my Slan for obvious reasons. But who knows? There's a rumoured new book in August, and he might suddenly lose it all. And
it might be even better.
Well, I can't see it. I think people will be crying into their soup when this happens. You can just see it, can't you? There's a big cricket bat on its way, and it's got Nerf written on the front of it. It's it's not going to be good. That'd be interesting. But for me, again, risk reward, low risk, high reward. Points denial, very very solid. Even when they're losing, if you start really losing, you don't know what you're doing. You could corner it and then just start throwing skink units in the way. And by the time you've double fled them all, it's quite hard to get killed. I think they're a lot harder to play now. As we spoke about than they were in other editions, but I also think, and as more armor and fast armor is coming out, like the Warriors list, I'd imagine gives it a massive headache. But Slan being Slan was fine. We'll just take metal on this one and something else that does something else on this one. There's a lot of options out there, so to help them, and I think that's why as the game evolves, they never change. I think I made the point many moons ago on this show that all the time you're tied to lawbook rules, and the lawbook rules, rulebook laws are good. You're gonna be fine because you can just tailor between what you want, especially if you can take 2. So that Lizardmen with you in second. So what was your top then?
I had Warriors as my number 1 choice.
Yeah, and why Warriors?
I think because if you took all of these armies and every player that had all of these armies were all of the same standard, I think the Warriors would come out on top purely because you can get across the table very quickly. You've got a very high armor save. They smash really hard. And the army as a whole moving across the table can support each other. Can support each unit because you can pick armies which are all fairly quick moving. And I just think they do what they do very, very well. And if you take against the Lizards, if the players are off the same level, then I think the Warriors will come out top most of the time. Yeah,
I don't disagree with you. I mean, I haven't got them as 1, but as I said to you, I've got them as 4th because I feel the 3 7th edition books above them have something extra on them that they don't have. But the internet may well agree with you as well. I think a lot of people rate the Warriors. I rate the Warriors. I think they're a really hard list. I think in no comp, why the 7th edition books are there, those. So that's Dark Elves, Lizardmen, and my number 1, which we'll talk about in a minute, Skaven. I think that they're slightly below, but ultimately they're great. Like you say, you can just literally run over the top of some people that don't know what they're doing or haven't got the right build. I think with the chariot spam, you've got highly manoeuvrable stuff. The Demon Prince is a massive crutch if you're not playing something that can one-shot him. Park him in front. He's unbreakable.
Yeah.
How many things are unbreakable these days? Not many, is it? So can you think of anything else?
No,
there's not much, is there?
No, not much at all, no.
No. So, yeah, I don't disagree with that choice at all. So my number one, the Rats. Now, it's probably not going to be long before and this is only no comp. Under comp, I think they'd be lower down the pack.
Yeah.
But no comp, I think when you can bring 2 Warp Lightning Cannons, you've got 15-point Warlock, speed bumps, all the stuff that you don't see because of comp, could really make these nasty. 13th going back uncomped, throwing massive dice at magic phases with Warpstone tokens and all the things that go with it. Million Gutter Runners. I don't know, just too many nasty combos to think of in no comp. They'd still be up there. And again, it goes back to risk reward. You very, very low risk, high reward, aren't you, with a lot of it? But yeah, I think with the way the game's changing, the meta, as we always refer to it and people refer to it as, is changing. I think they'll start to drop. I mean, we've talked about it off air before that I think Skaven's time is beginning to be numbered as the number one, but there's still a very solid list. Very solid list. So, and for me, looking at some of the benefits you've got 13th, which is obviously a great game-winning spell. We spoke about it in the last show. Good leadership. I know that arguably it gets low, but if you run the +1 leadership banner like I do, it takes a unit of slaves at leadership 7, 8, 9, 2 ranks. They're still leadership 9 with the reroll. It's just stupid, really, in a way. Risk versus reward. We've mentioned there's a game-winning unit in the Abomination. It can literally take people's armies off if it rolls well. It's hard to break down because if you have got all the rares and the things, it can be very hard to get around the flanks and really get into the sides where that leadership would actually make a difference. There's not too many uber bad matchups. If the player knows what it's bad. To give an example, I flicked through my book. I used the Skaven for 6 months sort of thing before ETC last year, and I only lost in tournaments 4 times with Skaven, including the ETC, the warm-ups, the lot, and 2 of those were against other Skaven, and the other 2, I didn't lose by more than 8 points, so I only lost 12-8. Right, because if you know it's a bad matchup, it's actually, unless you get your bell taken off by a cannon early because there's nowhere to hide it, or it's true line of sight, you can see it, whatever, and then someone's got a lot of speed to get over you, it's actually incredibly hard to get completely taken off if you don't try and play. And there's not many lists that can say that. So for me, that's kind of another reason why they made it up there. Is just as a general list, they are good. But I do think times are changing and they'll start to come down as the books come out. I mean, but as you can see, it's a shame. You look at my list, the top 3 books are all 7th edition, and I think it's all down to items, a lot of it. You think Doom Rockets, Brass Orbs, combined with, and again, a lot of them are combined with the new rulebook ones, so you end up with Dark Elf heroes running around with 1-up rerollable saves and stuff like that, which they probably couldn't have had before, and all that sort of stuff. So, interesting times. But good to see the difference in the lists.
Do you think a lot of the thing with the Skaven comes down to the slaves? I mean, if you took slaves out of the list,
or just made sure you couldn't shoot in a combat, it would make a massive difference. You just charge the slaves and you'd be there for all day chewing through them, and the Skaven player couldn't do anything. The problem at the moment is it's that high risk thing. You lob your stuff into the slaves. He's got a Cracks Call. He can do how many turns? Can you sit there and do Cracks Call? I mean, you look at the South Coast GT, the guy that came 3rd did 2 successful Cracks Calls to win against 2 Vampire players in the last 2 games. Both Vampire player rolled a 6. The only reason he can do it is because he can do it through slaves and things like that. So, and you just cause people a problem, and you can sit there chipping Warp Lightnings. It's all you wouldn't want to take that rule from them because in the fluff-wise, it would work great, wouldn't it, blowing your own slaves up? But they took the whole randomization off, so it's just really, really reliable. But I'd imagine that when that new book comes out, you'll see how many people actually like Skaven, because if they're not particularly great, you'll see people drop off them, because in pure power terms, if you look at the individual models, as you found when Ravening Hordes came out, as we talked about last game, they've not really got the pure stat lines, have they? They're high initiative, but they're mediocre weapon skill, mediocre stats. There's just lots of them, and in 8th edition, that doesn't mean anything, does it? Really?
No, not really. No.
So it's all about how the magic works, probably, and that kind of stuff. So at the moment, I had them top of my list because I think overall at this point in time, in the no comp, they can still really cut it on the sharp end. I always thought they were one of the lists that could really ramp it up when it comes to no comp. Whereas something like I say, the Empire, I don't think have too much of an extra gear. The Warriors do, and that's how I've picked my list, really, as I've gone through. So to recap you on my list then, and then we'll recap Wayne's for those of you that have been confused. I had Wood Elves, in 16, 15 Beastmen, 14 Tomb Kings, 13 Orc and Goblins, 12 Bretts, 11 Dwarfs, 10 Chaos Dwarfs, 9 Doc, that's demons, 8 Vampires, 7 Ogres, 6 High Elves, but we're completely not sure, 5 Empire, 4 Warriors of Chaos, 3 Dark Elves, 2 Lizardmen, and 1 Skaven, and presuming that was all 2,400 points and no comp. And what did you have, Wayne?
16 Wood Elves, 15 Tomb Kings, 14 Bretonnians, 13 Beastmen, 12 Chaos Dwarfs, 11 Dark Elves, 10 High Elves, 9 Dwarves, 8 Vampire Counts, 7 Demons, 6 Ogres, 5 was Skaven, 4th was Empire, 3rd was Orcs and Goblins, which was the massive difference, wasn't it, between our choices?
Yes.
2nd was Lizards, and 1st was Warriors.
Good. So yeah, overall, we just generally the only massive difference was Orc and Goblins and Dark Elves, I think, wasn't it? They were the only two that that really jumped. But yeah, I mean, when we both of us when we looked at this list, found it really, really hard to place one over the other, especially in the middle pack. And all of them's open for details. But yeah, there you go, internet. You always ask, what is the best army? Well, we've given you our little rundown of what we feel is our sort of top 16, if you like, but pinch of salt and pick what you want to play at the end of the day. But that's the answer to the ultimate question. There you go. Right, on to the next.
Oi, Muppet!
And we're back. So, Oi Muppet. Well, today's one is about formations, and you can probably appreciate this, Wayne, as a Skaven player. How many times have you set up against your opponent and then just doom rocketed a unit off of an Elven Spear unit that's deployed 5x5? Many?
A lot.
Yeah.
I doom rocket. I mean, you've played it. I very rarely miss my doom rocket.
Yeah, I'm the opposite.
Usually smack in the middle of the unit.
Yeah, it's one of the things I never hit with. But the amount of time, but when I have hit with it, or I've cast a Scorch. I mean, I'm using Skaven example because of all the templates. But and people have gone, oh yeah, rubbish. Oh my god, that's so broken. It's like, yeah, but you didn't need to have them in a 5x5, did you? What benefit was it to you at the point? And this is really the Oi Muppet part of it. Is the amount of people I see know they should be in another formation, but can't be bothered to move it off the tray. They're just like, I'll leave it there. So you end up with a spear block that's just a bunker sitting at the back of the board, and someone will deploy it 5x5 and let you doom rocket it or scorch it or whatever other template that you've got. Even a rock lobber. If you've got nothing else to shoot as an Orc and Goblin player, why not?
Yeah. You always know the switched on player, and he suddenly gets all these single file movement trays out.
It does annoy some people. I did it at
Michael
Sheffield.
Biggs.
Yeah,
brilliant.
He's probably
he's made all these single file.
Did you come to Sheffield? Did you see me playing any of my games at Sheffield? I have a name for them that I can't repeat on the show, but they're a something tray is what I call them, and mine were like 2x10, and in several games I deployed my Temple Guard and my Saurus unit in 10 wide lines because I was playing like Wood Elves and stuff like that, and just to keep my footprint bigger. But I knew that I was going to do it, so they're all magnetized. I've got magnetized trays. It works perfect. But the amount of people I see that just can't be bothered. So I guess, and then moan about it afterwards when they know, they're like hitting their head. They're like, why didn't I just deploy those? Like, and the answer is,
the thing is, you can't do it with a Skaven though, can you? Because of the rank bonus.
No. I mean,
you take a load of damage. You take a leadership test. You've lost. You put them in a long line and your ranks less. And the next thing you're running off the table. So it's probably the only army you can't really deal with.
most of them. It's just when you see like I say small units at the back of the board, or they take a panic test and run off, and it's like, well, actually, why did your spearman bunker need to be? Why wasn't it 10 wide with all your combat units in front of it? There's loads of ways of doing it, but it's just a silly little thing that generally what these Oi Muppets are all about. But formations. If you don't need to be in a block, don't be in a block. Just be long. And I think the key to this point is preparation. Bring different size trays. I was like it with my vampires. My vampires always had horde trays. I had like 15 wide ones. If I was playing Skaven, that's what they'd be deployed in, because you didn't want to get shot off before you got there, and then have a unit of slaves go in and do a couple of wounds and crumble a few more off you. So it's
cutting for the player though. He advances up, he gets right in front of you, reforms into his blocks, and then you just go pew pew pew, and take them all off.
This is the beautiful about combat reforms. He shouldn't need to, should he? He should just charge in, win, hope that it's not even hope. He should statistically most things beat a slave unit in combat, and then reform wide. And yes, okay, if it's a slave unit, you can still get templated, but at least he's made it there. And it's the ones where you see the bunker that's been taken off in the back, and then they complain when you 13th the rest of the unit with the warriors in. It's like, well, if it deployed it wide, you wouldn't have lost your lookout, sir, and then you can't complain. It's just, I mean, I lost my I was playing Dom Hook from the Black Sun podcast the other day, and he had Skaven Eyed Empire. And on my last turn, he cracks called my level 4. But the reason I didn't moan it was unlucky was because he nuked. I mean, I was deployed in a fairly thin line. I couldn't have been any. I was 2 lines of 10, right, with the bunker I was in, so that was fine. But he played for it, he killed it all, and then look out, sir. But there's no point me complaining because he played for that, and it was inevitably going to happen. But it's when you play a player who has a 20-man spear bunker that, you know, you doom rocket in one turn and they've got no lookout, sir, and then you 13th all the wizards off in one go. Yeah. And then they go, oh my God, 13th is so broke. It's like, no, what was wrong was your deployment of the unit. So, but you don't normally point that out at that point. You just keep quiet, don't you? And go and get your clan rats out of your box. Put them on the table. But yeah, I mean, using Skaven is a good example, really. But yeah, formations, just bear it in mind. If you don't need to be in that formation, don't be. Anything else on that, Wayne?
No, I think you got that. Yeah, spot on.
Cool. All right, time to move on.
This is the War Room.
And we're back. So we're joined by a man who kind of needs no introduction, but kind of does because we're on a podcast. Simon of Hoef. Hello, mate. How's it going?
Oh, it's all right, thank you.
Good. And Wayne's still here, obviously. Hello. So this quick 15-minute War Room, we're going to be talking briefly with Sai about his experience with the High Elves and particularly some issues he's come up with and how he's changing his list to deal with those. We're not going to talk in depth about his games because we're going to do that on a Saucy Section show shortly after. So if you want to hear some more of how Sai's going on with his, what are you, 5-6 games in now with the High Elves?
Yeah, around that.
Yeah, how Sai's gotten on with all those games and a bit more in-depth talk. Check that out. This is mainly to do with a particular element I wanted to grab, which has come apparent a little bit. So the one thing I wanted to talk to you about, Sai, with the High Elves is armour. Have you played against much armour?
I've played against a fair amount when it's been warriors, where obviously everything has armour, and it hasn't necessarily been quite easy. It's when I find high armor save is one thing, but high armor save and the high toughness just makes it that much harder to get through it because your bolt throwers start being significantly less effective as soon as you hit toughness 5.
Good. And I say good, it's probably not for you. So which races particularly? Is it warriors?
Warriors is the biggest, but Empire with the 1-up saves and toughness 1, the Democracy.
I instantly, the listeners can't
all
appreciate
comes back
this.
to the 1-up save.
The minute I saw Simon say that, I looked at Wayne, he's like going for the mic. He just wants to say, Wayne's fave. So yeah, no, I can see that. So what did you find initially, that it was just a struggle full stop, or did you instantly think, oh, I need to sort something out of my list?
It was one of those things. The first game I thought, we'll see. It's never been easy, but with rerolls and enough attacks, the elite infantry can deal with it. And you realise just how much of a difference not having rerolls makes. And then, it's been a case of looking at the list, seeing what I can take to try and squeeze in a bit more anti-armour, whether it's the Lawmaster, whether it's Phoenixes, more bolt throwers.
Because strength 6 is really important, isn't it? Strength, when you're playing against 1-up armor saves, strength 5 doesn't really cut it, does it?
No.
You need, if you're going strength 5, you need to have the Razor Standard on the unit as well. And I think you'll see a lot of Razor Standards in High Elf armies.
Funny enough, the first game I played with the High Elves was against Brian, the Hobby Killer, and that was his first choice on the list, was 30 White Lions with the Razor Standard, which might sound expensive, but because the points drop is roughly the same cost as it cost anyway. So it's paid for itself.
Exactly. And I mean, 21 with it is about 400 points, which is obviously very good against armor. You're still vulnerable-ish against some when, like crushers, when you're hitting on 4s. But no, they do the job. And I think White Lions, after the first immediate internet reaction of, oh my God, they don't have rerolls, that you realise, well, actually, they do still have that big purpose in the list. And since probably about half the number of games, after about 3 games, they went back in.
That reminds me, I mean, it's a Heelanhammer favourite, we say this a lot, but they're one of the things in the list. If you've got something in the list and it's the only thing that performs that kind of role, it doesn't matter how much they cost or how much they've got worse than they were, you're still going to take them. And White Lions are one of the only, they are your strength 6 sort of can openers, aren't they, really?
Yeah.
There's not a lot, I mean, there's other things, you've got characters and things, but they're, as a unit, am I right in thinking they're the only thing that's got access to strength 6?
Yeah, anything else is a monster or a character. They're the only thing that's base strength 6.
Yeah. I mean, you have got, I suppose, armour-wise, have you been running a Frost Phoenix at all or not so far?
I haven't yet. That's this week's thing. I've just sort of been working my way through the book, trying the different things. The Frost Phoenix is what's coming up.
I'm thinking in my head that you're going to have a good time with that one because I played against it and my monstrous cav hated it because do you know what the Frost? Do you remember off memory what the Frost Phoenix does, Wayne?
Is it -1 to hit if you're within?
It's -1 strength. So if you're
-1 strength, sorry.
it's toughness 6. If you imagine if you're a demigriff,
Yep.
you're now strength 4. So and most monsters cavalry are strength 5. Go to 6s to wound it. And it
What's the
stands in
radius of
front-
that?
Anything in a unit in base. So
The base
yeah,
concept, right, okay.
it's really nice. And of course you put that with your battle standard and general nearby for the rerolls in your little bubble. And
What's the
it's quite
toughness of the
safe.
Phoenix though?
6. Yeah, and it's attuned to magic, so there's a good chance that you can increase the ward save or the attacks or something like that. Most of them are good, aren't they? There's not a lot that are bad.
You have to roll double 1 really to be particularly unhappy. Everything's going to help you to a certain extent. Even +1 strength against monstrous cav is fine. The extra attack's fine, and the ward save's obviously brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I just found it amazingly good when I played it. It's so frustrating. If it's anywhere near your general and your battle standard, it's a pretty good thing. And have you been? I suppose it depends on your setup. But if you got a Law Master or someone with life, chipping the wound back on it with a silly little throwaway spell that people can't really afford to stop is quite a good tactic I've seen used on that. So, have you been playing with life at all, and any of them or not?
Yeah, I actually tried the Ever Queen with life.
Oh, yeah.
And that was interesting. I think with the Ever Queen herself, you end up not having quite enough spells. Only 4 spells on life doesn't really make it work. But I can see having other mages with life with that combination, probably the Law Master doing it. It's got a lot of potential with the multi-wound stuff.
Does the Law Master actually get the law attribute for all of the laws?
Yeah.
He does.
So
when
he
casting
does
that spell.
actually get all of them, yeah.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
It's beautiful, beautiful. I think there's been a lot said on the internet. A lot of people trying him out. Some people not liking him. Some people liking him. I've played it with 2 of them. I know Brian Hobbykiller's taking it to Denmark this weekend when we go. And there's a few people kicking around. I haven't seen anybody really using double, but I found it quite effective little combo actually for what it does. And I like the idea of it in a list. Whether if you start going cutting edge, it drops out of people's list eventually. I don't know, but we won't talk about how you found it yet. We'll save that for the saucy section. So the armor wise, what tools have you got to deal with the armor? Then you've got your White Lions. Obviously, we talked about Razor Standard. And would you think Razor Standard on Sword Masters, or do you not see Sword Masters making the final cut at the moment? Or?
I prefer it on the Phoenix Guard and then hoping you get the magic buffs on them, just because if you don't get the magic buff on the Sword Masters, they're going to die. Whereas if you get the magic buff, if you, for whatever reason, you can't get it on the Phoenix Guard, you tend to have a turn before they're in serious trouble.
Because they've already got the ward save.
They've already got the ward save. There's a potential for it to be boosted with high magic. They benefit arguably more from some of the defensive buffs because they've already got the ward save.
Right.
So I reckon Razor Standard on them. I mean, you could do it on Swordmasters, but I think you have to take a larger unit.
Yeah, no,
Fair enough.
I can see that. And how have you found the bolt throws against the armor? Do you find they chip away?
They do if you're single shotting. Multi-shot does very little against one-up saves. You tend to just have to go for single shots. But with them being 70 points, if you miss the single shot, it's not quite as heartbreaking as it was when they were 100 points.
Yeah, it's like people who take goblin bolt throws. If they hit something, you're just happy, aren't you, that it works. So I can definitely see that. So you've obviously got your bolt throwers. You've got that. Have you got any character setups particularly that deal with it? I mean, other than super duper cavalry guys, I suppose, with ogre blades or things, but
nothing springs to mind other than the ogre and giant blade things. You can use great weapons just on them, but lacking the rerolls now, you're probably better off going for halberds and things like that on a lot of them, unless they're specifically their only job in the army is to chase after armor and run into it.
Okay.
Oh, actually, you can use the Reaver bow, strength 5. It works pretty well because it's easier to wound than the bolt throwers. So actually, you can just keep firing that and potion of strength if you wanted to run that combo as well.
No, I like that. So did you... Let's talk about the meta game then, as this is the war room section and we're talking about tactics. So the meta game, as the term banders around, is probably currently on the UK scene. You're looking at a couple of units of good monstrous cavalry, some sort of decent combat unit, or bunkered mages at the back. But generally, the combat punch tends to be it's gone back to smaller elite units. You've either got warriors with a billion different chariots and backed up by crushers and a demon prince and things, or you've got Empire with your double, your steam tank and your double demis. Your ogres are still toting their usual sort of big Gutstar trained, basically stuff that you're not gonna, not infantry is the way. And there's a mix of good armor in there as well. So if putting you on the spot completely here, if you were gonna put a list together to fight in that meta and attend a tournament next week, based on the games you'd had, what would you go for roughly?
Theory hammer in it. I think you need the White Lions. You need the Phoenix Guards. So I'd have those as my sort of 2 elite infantry blocks. Quite a few Reavers, probably 3 units, and then some shooting corps, 3-4 bolt throwers, Frost Phoenix, and then I'd probably take the Lawmaster for the utility. I haven't quite decided whether you want level 4 in Lawmaster or actually just run the Lawmaster on his own. It depends on points. Do you think the level 4 is still a necessity though for the Dispelling? It can be, but with the Phoenix Guard being one of your main fighting units, them having a 4-up ward save, and then you can have the Banner of the World Dragon on the White Lions, you can sort of make it so you're fairly resistant to at least damage magic. It's just whether you can control the buff phase.
No, I like it. I mean, you're a braver man than me. I don't think I'd turn up without that level 4. But yeah. But like you, along the same lines, I think they would be the kind of things on my list. I'd be looking at 4 bolt throwers, White Lions. I still think they make it. Just having a stubborn unit auto is, for anything else aside, it is really good in the strength 6. Level 4 of some description. What sort of lore choices would you look at then?
I still think Shadow and Death are probably the high elf lores of choice. I've tried high magic, and while it's a great utility lore, it doesn't really help you with the massive problems that high elves have, like the armor, whereas Shadow and Death both do.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. So what about cavalry? Is there anything particularly exciting in the cav that you've seen?
I think the Dragon Prince is now the fact that they've got strength 5 and rerolls, and they're the only one that are strength 5 with the rerolls without magic. I think they have a place. They've got a little bit cheaper. They're faster, and they're significantly faster than some monstrous cav being movement 9. I'm unsure how you'll sort of fit that in. If you were going for the other 2 units, I think that's where you'd have to think about whether you wanted to take the level 4 or not. But you could take out the Phoenix Guard, run a Dragon Prince bus, or just run Silverhelm bus. But I think if you're doing that, you have to have 2 or 3 characters in there to really get the most out of it.
You could run the Razor standard on the Prince bus, couldn't you?
Yeah, so your strength 5 armor piercing with 2 attacks each, and then an extra rank of attacks. If you were being really greedy, an extra rank of attacks on that with your characters in the front.
Yep.
Hitting at strength 6.
So that'd dish out a fair bit of damage, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I like the idea in the current meta game when we're talking about it, because you can outcharge them. You're obviously not getting stomped in the face for being infantry and all the rest of it. I like the idea of the Dragon Prince bus. Whether it proves too fragile, like most sort of buses, as we term that. For anybody who doesn't know that term, it's normally a load of characters in a 10+ knight unit of some description. In this case, Dragon Princes. I also think you probably end up having to build your list around it. I don't think it's a unit. You might run a unit with a hero in as a block, but I think if you want to go the whole hog, I quite like the idea of level 4 life mage in the bus with a battle standard and maybe another lord if it's available, or just 2 of the hero characters. Banner of the World Dragon on the unit, so it's one of the only things in the game that can actually safely hold a mage in it with a miscasting, and just running around with that. I think it might be fun. I don't know how competitive it is, but it could be quite fun running around whacking people with that.
Yeah, the issue I found, because I tried that a fair amount with the old book. And it is great fun. The issue is when you're fighting some armies with their shooting being toughness 3, you just keep losing Dragon Princes. It's when you fight Orcs and Goblins and they go, Doom Diver, that's 5 dead. Doom Diver, that's another 5 dead. Okay, so it's going to be one of those games, and you realise you don't have very much left very quickly.
I can see that, actually, and I've found it with the Empire. At the minute, I'm running 2 units of 4 Demigryphs and then a unit of 10 Inner Circle Knights with my General and Battle Standard in. And it's amazing the difference toughness 4 and 3 makes. Like when the amount of extra wounds saves you're required to make on a toughness 3 unit than you are on a toughness 4 unit. You don't think it'd be massive, but it really feels... I find if you're fighting anything that's slightly... troublesome, people just chip away at you. Even if you're fighting slaves or something like that, they just make you take saves, whereas a toughness 4 you don't take as many. I know that's statistically obvious, but I don't think it's as
there's
obvious.
A massive difference between the high elves and the Empire, isn't it? You know, without chirping on, you've got the 1-up save, he's got the 2-up save. The 2-up save is, it's a massive difference, isn't it? Because suddenly strength 4 is knocking you down again, whereas it isn't affecting you.
No, it's definitely big. It's just more. My main point there was that it's regardless of your save, it's the toughness 3 is you're rolling more of them, so you got more chance of failing, which is what I found with using them.
So yeah, even if you're just fighting, another high elf army or dark elves or wood elves or tomb kings, any of this sort of ballistic skill shooting, if your toughness 4 with a 1-up save bounces off, does next to nothing, so toughness 3 2-up save, you really start to notice you're losing models.
No, I can see that. So yeah, it's quite a few options early doors then of what we're running, and we're going to talk on the Saucy show with you of your update of these 5-6 games to see what you ran and how you found that. But interesting being put on the spot to see what you would take, and like anything, I'm sure when you sat down and squeezed points, you'd either find there was more or less. But how have you found that? Just very quickly to end this, how have you found that with the high elves? Have you found that you've got more points when you write things down on paper or less points?
I find every time I write an army and I get really happy with it, I add it up and it's 2,500 every time.
Yeah, so it's one of them.
Yeah, it is. You can't quite fit everything in, but that said, I don't find this as bad as the previous book for that.
Is that because of the core?
Yeah, it's because you don't feel like you're taking 600 points of core for sitting on the board edge. It actually contributes.
Yeah. Okay, I like it. Okay, well, I think we'll wrap that up there. So, very quick segment for you there on a little bit of tactical chat on the High Elves and how it is shaping up in the meta. I'm sure there's loads of people on it. The High Elves seem to have an active community on is it Ulthwan.net or wherever they.
Yeah, I think in terms of race-specific forums, it's one of the more successful ones.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think there's quite a few tournament regulars that sort of frequent that forum. So I'd recommend anybody there have a quick look. And of course, our forum and the Warhammer forum for more sort of High Elf chat. And of course, check out the Saucy section for the show which we're going to record with Simon in the near future. So thanks for coming on, Zai, for this. Hopefully some people have found it useful. And we'll catch up with you again soon.
Beady Weedy Week.
Okay, Beady Weedy Weeks, our final segment of the day. So Wayne, what have you been up to the hobby this week? Anything much?
Finally finished all of the commission work and sent it off today.
Cool.
So that was like one order, which was 4 Yetis, 2 Gorges, a Giant, a Scrap Launcher, 60 Nobblers, 4 Saber Tusks, and probably something else. I can't remember.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, I mean, it was only like basic speed paint, basically. Dipped. But yeah, it looks right. It looked okay. So finally got that out of the way. So my painting table is clear now. And after numerous hobby wobbles, toying with the Dark Elves and maybe adding some stuff to my Skaven, which I will do at some point anyway.
Yeah.
Or even starting a new Skaven army. Which
No.
brief. Yeah.
No way, no. I'm telling you now, the
Every
listeners,
time I mention that,
the
you
listeners
just
are shouting at you.
Screaming at
I can
me.
hear it from here, at the back of Heelanwood Studios. The crowds are going mad at you. No! Everyone wants to see the Empire. It doesn't matter what else. They want to see the Empire.
Well, everything with the Empire, I'm not going to do Empire because I
got 1-up saves. Go on, say it.
I don't like the entire figure range, and I'm not overly sold by the way they play. It just doesn't suit
You don't
me.
have to sit on the board edge.
But no, I don't. But no, I won't. I'll never do that. Well, I'll try never to do that. Anyway.
Great swords, mate. Yeah.
Great sword, yeah, and a big 40 of those, yeah.
Yeah,
you love those, wouldn't you? You play against those.
Yeah. Pew, 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 pew. Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
I'm 99.9% sure I'm going to go Orcs and Goblins. Go back to the Orcs and Goblins because of what we talked about earlier. Massive variation in the book, in the list. Loads of different painting projects. Quite suits my painting style. Quite old school painting style with bright colours. Just loads and loads of things you can do. So I think I'm going to go down that way. I'm not going to do the extreme list, but it was all like the big squig hordes. I want to do a bit of everything really. So I think that's the way I'm going to go. But the Empire, the Pegasus Knight charging the Giant.
Yes, long-term listeners will know. Short-term listeners might not. Wayne did an awesome conversion of a Giant being stabbed in the face with a Pegasus riding Empire hero, didn't you?
Yeah.
And it was sort of balanced on a was it 50mm base you did it on, or was it on an
it
actual...
was counterbalance. He's
a 40mm base, wasn't it?
40mm base, yeah. So he's falling back as if he's basically just been lanced through the skull. So I'm going to have a Giant in the army, and that's going to be my Giant.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm going to obviously put a new base on it, finish the work I've done on it because I never I never actually finished the model properly. So I'm going to finish that. I'm going to put the Giant in because I gave him an orc because the Empire project was themed on them fighting Orcs and Goblins anyway. So he was done up with like the Black Orc shields. He had a belt made of Black Orc shields, so that all fits in.
Yeah,
and I'm going to do like a Black Orc now, kind of with tournaments and with South coaches. The the unit cap has gone. I'm going to do the whole 40-man Black Hawk block.
Yeah.
Which you don't see, but I'm going to take it anyway because I just think, being able to use great weapons against some armies is going to be great.
They're not actually that bad. I mean, I used them in my games with all the games I played with the Orc and Goblins. I had Black Orcs, and I thought they were okay. They're just like anything else. They're kind of expensive infantry, but the flexibility is there. Immune to psych. You've got you can have 2 strength 5 choppers in the first round of combat. Still like the Savage Orcs, it's just the more expensive. So heavy armor as well.
Yeah, exactly, with heavy armor. So I'm and I like the models. I like the Black Orc models.
Cool.
So I want to paint those, and I think that's the only thing I need to get. Actually, I've pretty much got everything else in the Orc and Goblin. But apart from that, actually, Goblin Chariots. And I'd quite like to do like a unit of 3 Goblin Chariots. That'd just need to sort out the kind of the theme. I pretty much know say theme. The kind of tribal theme with his color scheme. I'm thinking I'm going to go blue.
Yeah.
So
Are you going to do dark green rimmed bases and light green bases? Old school though.
I'm doing a mixture of stone and bright green. So the grass on it will be painted bright green like my Skaven, and then there'll be stonework on there as well.
That'd be cool.
Because I just like that old school base. I just think it really kind of sells the model and just really makes the whole thing pop.
Well, your paint style is perfect, yeah.
Yeah, I would say, it's perfect. It's not perfect.
Yeah, it's like the Hall of Fame in White Dwarf, mate, all over again. Anyway, correct.
But it'll be black rimmed. I won't do the goblin green, rims because when you do the black rim, it kind of it sells the base better.
Yeah, I don't paint anything.
Whereas the green base
now.
doesn't. It kind of dulls it down a bit.
I just saw one in one of those White Dwarfs you're looking at there that had like a real dark green, like probably might even be Dark Angels or darker than Dark Angels, and that looked quite old school when I saw it done. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think if you really like Foundry do a bottle green, and that's really really dark. So you could do it with that, but I'm going to stick to black. I think the black because with my Skaven, I've done it with the black looks
the
it
contrast,
sells about.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking though I'm probably going to do more of an underground theme with a more stonework than usual, and then the grass will kind of seem more like sort of moss, clumps of moss and stuff. I'm going to go that route. I mean, I've put loads of the army together already in bits when I've had been thinking about doing it, but I think I only painted one test model, and that was a Night Goblin. But I want to get the Forge World ones. There's a Goblin pack where you can get a Squig Rider, a BSB, and it's got this really cool sort of double Bad Moon banner, and then there's a wizard, a Goblin wizard in it. So I want to get that because that's really cool. But I just basically want to paint a unit of everything.
Yeah. No, it'd be good.
What about you?
Me, I have been doing Wayne Kemp style hobby wobbles. I honestly, over the weekend, was it the weekend? I probably had about 3 a day where I come in here, I'd think, I'm going to do this, pull all models out, clear all the desks of everything, and just put those models on the tray. Then I'd come in halfway feeling, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. And it literally, I was having this throughout the whole day. So I've got my Lizardman army. It's not finished. I can't actually field a painted 2004. Well, I can field a painted 2,400 point army, but it's weird. Like I'd have to field Croxagore. I'd have to either field Stegodons, which is fine. Or if I didn't, I'd have to field Croxagore, but then the bases aren't done. So I've been fighting with myself about finishing, going back through. I've got skirmish trays for my skinks, but it's like I could do with making proper ones, like scenic ones for them. So I was thinking I could do those. I could rebase all my Croxagores. I could re-highlight my old Croxagores so they're ready. I could do a load of stuff ready. So if there's a new book, I've got a load of stuff and I just need to paint whatever the new hotness monstrous cav will be or something like that. But I don't know. Every time I pick them up and look at them, I don't want to paint them. And I just don't know why. I mean, well, I could kind of do. I painted every single scale with 3 layers of highlights and lines. So that's something. But the new stuff I'm doing these days and the way I'm painting it, I find much more enjoyable. Like all my old stuff is kind of like no washes really. There's the odd wash on it, but it's all
painstaking.
And it takes too long. Whereas the new stuff, I like the contrast that I get from the washes. Real stark lines and contrast. But overall, I actually think it looks better than the Lizardman. But I have been tempted. I mean, and the other thing that's in the back of my mind is I'm a very busy person, so I'm thinking, I can spend just time having fun, altering this, doing this, adding to it. It's not like I'm going to be stuck to any time scale. But then ultimately, I still haven't got another army. I'll still be playing Lizardmen for the next 20 odd years. And I'm not sure I actually like the scheme on my Lizardmen anymore. I just don't like it. I don't know what else to say. It doesn't, how I see the army being painted now isn't that colour scheme. And then I start thinking, well, that's fine, because I could do a new Lizardman army, because it's just adding units, isn't it? And then doing bits. But I found myself not as infused about the fluff either. And I really like the whole Lizardman idea, but I don't know why. It just seems to have gone off them in recent times. I just don't know why. I've got most of the Empire army there, so I had them out. I've nearly painted a unit of 5 knights. They just need highlighting. But again, I put those away, and what I ended up painting this morning when I come to my first painting session was 20 slaves for the Skaven. So at the minute, I'm not gonna commit. I'm playing Empire for the next few months for ETC, and enjoying that, which is great. But so I'm sort of looking at different bits of paint. My only worry is the same worry I always have. I've had for the last 3 years when I've been borrowing armies for ETC. When ETC finishes and I give it back, what am I playing? For the rest of the tournament season? And the answer is I don't know. I could play Lizardmen, but I'm not going to be competitive, because what I've got is not, as I found out at Sheffield, is not competitive anymore. So,
well, the book might be out by then. So
indeed, yeah. I mean, much might have changed, but I bet you there'll be some new hotness unit I'll want to paint, and then it's
but that might work out fine, because what you've got painted, like you say at the moment, you'd have to fill the croc score. But if, say, some monstrous cav unit comes out and it's really, really good, and that's that would go straight to your painting table, and that would take the slot of what the croc score
or the Temple Guard, or whatever.
Exactly. So
because the Temple Guard are all base coated, but not.
And
finished.
I'm sure when brand new models come out for it, suddenly, because they're bound to be like pterodons, plastic pterodons. I'd be amazed if there wasn't plastic pterodons. So you might get something really, really cool.
But yeah, I've been tempted to redo that, because I'm looking at it, and the bits I don't like about it are actually reasonably easily fixed. It's one of the units, the Saurus unit, for example, looks too green. It always has done, and I'm thinking, well, I just need to pull a few men out, make a unit filler, and build more orange into it, as I did with the rest of the army. The base on the Croxagore I can make look nice and neat. And I just need to finish the Temple Guard. So, yeah, there's lots of things I can do.
I think having a slight variation with the unit, even when it's the same colour scheme and you've got that slight little tone difference, I think that's a good thing, though, because if everything is exactly the same, it can almost kind of make it look a bit sort of bland.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's green. I've never noticed that. I've never noticed that the Saurus are too green in compared to the rest of the army.
Yeah, they just I did them
but then
at a
again,
point
when
earlier.
you paint your own army, every little what the painter of his own army, what he never looks at anything and says, do you know what, that is awesome. You always fixate on mistakes, or what you see as things that you should have done better.
Yeah,
and it's a real pain when you and it can sometimes put you off adding to the army, which you'll find in a moment, because you look at something, the process you've done to it, and someone could be really, really nice and say, oh, I love that unit, it's great, but you'll be looking at it and thinking, I don't want to paint any more the way I did that.
No, that's exactly
because it's wrong.
Yeah,
in my head, it's wrong.
Well, it is. I look at that, and like the Temple Guard, I've base coated the Temple Guard. They're all base coated. They're done. They should be easy, shouldn't it? The highlighting. Thing is, the colours I've base coated them now, I don't want to paint them. They're all Games Workshop foundation paints that don't exist for a start. And the other colours have all got equivalents. It's fine. I could find something else. But just the consistency. I remember the smell. Do you know what it is? It's the smell of. I used to have Khemri Brown a lot. I think it was Khemri Brown, one of those, and it's mixed into like loads of stuff in that army. And the smell of that. Just when I see the models in front of me, all I can think is the smell of Khemri Brown, and I keep thinking, do you know what? I don't want to do it. I just don't. And then I look at my Skaven, and they're really quite bright and everything else. Yeah. And I think that's what I want to paint. And my Empire are the same. They're bright and colourful and sharp, and that's the kind of look I'm looking for. And I'm thinking I could probably do the lizards like that, but I don't know if it would look odd. And I'm not really, for whatever reason, I'm not feeling it. I quite enjoy them in the game, actually, Lizardmen. I still think they're a great army, but I'm just not feeling them like I used to. So I've been a bit sort of, I keep getting models out and thinking this, because in theory it's a great idea, isn't it? I can just concentrate on tweaking the army and doing all the fun bits.
Yeah.
But then when I did that, I don't know if I'd actually want to play it. And like you say, with a new book coming out, I don't know. That would be the sensible person would do that. They would go back through the army, revitalise it, repair it, rebase all the bits that have really been annoying you for ages, do all the movement trays, and just have it there. But I just don't know. Something about it doesn't do. So I ended up painting 20 slaves this morning.
Yeah.
And I've got the Skaven out. So yeah, massive hobby wobbles. But I'm sure I'll get there at some point. I mean, if only we could see sneak peeks of this rumoured Lizardman book, then it might give me an idea. Because if the models are really, really junk, then it would make it even easier for me to just go, nah.
I'd say for you, for the amount of the bits you've got done with the Skaven, and you enjoy painting those, just keep plugging away with those. And then when something does come out, you can always put them to one side.
Well, I was trying to work it out. I did this really sad, like typical me, really. This thing, right? I wrote down every Skaven model that I'd have to paint to get a 2,400 point list that'd be reasonably competitive, and then I did the same with the Empire, because the Empire, we've got these small, really useful boxes not far from us, and you can fit a whole Empire army in one of them. It's just you just don't need many models.
Yeah.
And I kind of enjoy painting the models, and I know it'll look good when it's done. I like what I've done in my cabinet. But then I started to think about it, and I was like, well, actually, how much longer does it take to paint? I know it's 120 slaves, but it's not, because you got fillers that you can do, and I know they take time, but at least they're fun. And then I started to work it out, and it's not that much longer to paint Skaven, because you imagine by the time you painted like Empire Knights in the current list I'm using at the moment, if that is a list that I decided to paint for myself, I'd have 15 to 20 knights, 2 units of demigryphs, a cannon, a tank. I'd need another 20 crossbows, 2 foot characters, 2 mounted characters, and it's like that's 22 knights. How many foot models could you paint in the time it takes to paint 22 knights if you're not painting them silver? Because obviously, if you sprayed them silver and dipped them and stuff, they're obviously very, very quick. But I'm not, so I'm thinking it can't be a lot different, can it? To paint in 20 slaves to paint in 5 to 10
no,
knights.
I think it's just a psychological thing. I always find that if you like the models, like when I do the Night Goblins, I'm probably going to do a foot block of 40 of them. And they're all small models, and they're all going to be done with that storm blue for the black on the cloaks and everything. But it's still 40 models. But because they're small models that I actually really like the one piece. They remind me a lot of the Skaven clan rats. Actually.
Yeah.
They're really kind of nicely detailed, not over the top, but just nice models, single pose models. I just think I actually will enjoy painting the 40 of those. I'm actually quite looking forward to now I've got everything clear. I'm actually looking forward to sitting down and painting those the same as what I did my test model.
Yeah.
The only thing I need to do, I think I did a yellow moon shield, but I'm going to change that to blue. And but it's still 40 models. Now, if that was 40 of pretty much anything else. I mean, orc models, I think how old the orc models are. I looked at one of those and I was thinking, well, when I do a block of these, I've really got to be motivated because I'm not overly keen on the models.
They were one of the only units in the Orc army I didn't want to paint either.
Yeah, because I kind of look at the way it's the way they are. They're kind of really weird looking.
Yeah, they're not easy to paint well either because they've got large flat areas, which is never good for quick painting, is it? So
yeah, exactly. So I sort of looking at those and I'm thinking, I'm not sure, but I will do them. But I think what I need to do is pick a unit I really want to paint, do it in its entirety. Because I want to do. I want to go back to the way I used to do a lot of hand-painted banners. Yeah. So even though there's a lot of embossed banners, I want to convert those and have I want to use that Forge World double banner with, that's really nice. But everything else, I want to do hand-painted banners. Yeah. Because I really enjoyed doing that. But now it's so easy with the models being embossed banners and that. It just, for quickness, it's brilliant. And you can still, obviously, you can make it look fantastic because all the details there for you already.
Yeah, definitely.
But I want to go back to that all hand-painted banners. So yeah, I'll do that first unit of Night Goblins because I love the Night Goblin side of it anyway. Everything about Night Goblins, all the units you can get for those, I think they're great. Yeah. So I'll do that, and then I might do a unit of unit of Squigs, and then just plod along like that. Just do one, do a unit, do another little unit, and then eventually I'll get to the point where it'll be like, well, I only need to do the orcs. The unit I don't want to paint, the orc boys. That's all that's left. So then I'll do it and I'll enjoy it because there's nothing left to do.
Yeah. I'm trying to do a bit of the mix of the opposite. I'm kind of, my approach to it at the moment is I'm going to do 20 slaves, see how I feel after those. But if I'm not too bothered, I'll do another 20 slaves. And I'm thinking that's 2 20s. And then I could probably, I think really there's, because I'm not going to paint 120 slaves. I'm not going for 3 units. I'm going to go with 2 slaves because then it forces me to use my clan rats probably. So I'll probably paint the 2 clans. The 1 clan rat, the 2 slaves, and then probably some storm vermin, and then go from there. Because then it's kind of like the one thing is you're going to use at least 2 slave units. You're never not going to, are you? Probably. Yeah. So get those sorted. But if I can break the back of those, then it's actually I'd prefer to paint slaves and storm vermin. I think the storm vermin look fairly complex for the models they are.
I've only ever painted one of those storm vermin, and that was on my Bonebreaker conversion. And they're not actually. They kind of, when you look at them, you think, oh, these are going to take some painting. But the one I painted was actually, because there's quite a lot of the cloth areas, quite a lot of cloth area on it. It's not that much metal either. You think that, there's more, but there isn't. They're actually really nice to paint.
Oh, okay then. They're really,
they're really, really nice. Just make sure you get the join on the cloth around the bottom where it joins the side of the model. There's a line there. So just get a bit of liquid green stuff on make sure that goes.
I did actually do. I did do them because
I've got them.
Oh, you've got over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I think I had to try and green stuff them before, and I think Brian might have built me some for ETC last year that's now in Owl's army. But so that's what I'm doing at the minute, Skaven. I'm not going to say that I'm going to suddenly I'm sticking to these. I'm definitely doing them, but that's kind of what is on my desk at the moment. We'll see if that ends up being the case in a couple of months, if there is a new Lizard book. But so there we go. So that kind of rounds out what we've been doing. Anything else from you, Wayne?
No,
good.
No, but obviously on the next show there's going to be some progress. One thing I think I am going to try. You know the whole old school purple lips on the orcs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the bottom lip, purple lip. I think I'm going to do that because you don't see that very often.
Purple lips, checks, and red weapons.
Yeah, proper old school. But blue checks. Blue checks.
Do it. I like it. Cool. Well, let's get out of here then. So, thanks again for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully, you enjoyed this show and the last show and all of our shows. Quick nod to the sponsor again: www.ogggames.co.uk for all your hobby needs. Make sure you check them out for anything you might need, especially if you're into not just Games Workshop but also Magic, card games, board games, the lot. Make sure if you want to help support the show and grab yourself a load of extra content as well, see what I'm up to on Dan's Den. There's other blogs from other listeners on there, including Superstar Russville. You've got loads of other guides on magnetic basing, all that kind of stuff. And of course all the extra shows, the entire show archive, the lot is on our Saucy section, the super awesome Wargamers Club that name Wayne came up with many years ago. So make sure you sign up to that. It's just half price at the moment for £9 a year. Absolute bargain. Plenty of people have taken advantage of it, so make sure that's you. Remember, if you do sign up, to email me your username. I can't do anything about activating it if I get a PayPal payment that doesn't say anything about who you are and what your username is. So make sure you do that. And if you forget, by all means, just send me a separate email. If you do sign up for our normal forum, which is free, make sure you email me your username again on that so I can activate you, because otherwise you'll get caught up with all the spammers. The place to be if you want live updates is Twitter. At WayneKemp13 and at Heelanhammer are our addresses. You'll see everything we're up to. If we're playing a game, we normally tweet. If we're doing whatever in the hobby, we'll be tweeting on there. And if you're scared of Twitter, don't be. So many people I've read so many things over the internet where people have heard us and other podcasters raving about it and then got involved themselves and found out it is. I mean, you were one of them, Wayne, weren't you?
Oh yeah, I was a proper technophobe on the whole social networking kind of thing, and now I love it. Absolutely love it.
Never look back. Make sure if you have been playing with your Blood Thrones, we want your stories, so make sure you email those in. If you've got any questions, actually, we're going to probably do a question and answer show at the end of next month, so if you've got any questions you want answered, topics you want covered, just start emailing them to me. There's also a forum area that says future show ideas or similar. Post in there. I always read those to pick those up. We're always interested in what you guys exactly want to hear to make sure we don't get into a show rut where we just keep chucking out these things. Finally, iTunes reviews. If you listen to us on iTunes, we'd really appreciate you sticking a review on there if you like the show. It helps us move up the charts and prospective new listeners find us. So that's it really, and most importantly, make sure you're telling everybody to come and listen to our show. If you like what we do, spread the word, talk to friends at your local gaming club, stick our link in your signatures on your blogs or anything else when you're talking about us online. That'd be very much appreciated. Wayne, been a pleasure
as always.
Good. See you all next week.
Bye bye.